Adaptation is the act of changing something to fit into a new medium. We see a large variety of books, short stories, comic books, video games, and graphic novels making their way to the big screen, and it often doesn't go too well. See, adaptation is the skill of translating art. There are the more classic translators out there who have made it their life's ambition to bring great works from one language to another, such as Johnny Woods, whose final task was to translate the intricate novel Bottom's Dream from German into English. Like taking a book's context from one culture into another, when a filmmaker embarks on the journey of adapting a book into a film, there's a massive shift in the language they have to use to fully communicate the original story. See, cinema has its own language, its own way of communicating emotional truths, character beats, and world-building elements. In bringing a story out of its original medium and into another, a filmmaker must take care to understand its nature on a primordial level, and then craft a cinematic experience that uses visual language to fully communicate the essence of that story. On a totally unrelated topic, White Noise, based on the novel by Don DeLillo, was released in 2022 by Netflix, and starred Adam driving me crazy for lending his talent to the dumpster fire that is Disney, is a strange little picture about a professor of Hitler studies whose family goes through a pollution disaster. Along the way he finds out his wife is taking medicine, and he finds that weird, so he investigates and finds out that she's afraid of dying. And then he almost kills the man she was trading sex with for not being afraid of death pills, like you do, and then he meets some weird nuns, and the movie ends. While that may seem like something out of a nonsensical dream your friend had that he's trying to explain to you in painstaking detail, I promise, I am not exaggerating, that is the plot. And the thing is, that is also what happens in the novel, and in the book form it's actually really great. But as for the movie, The writer is Noah Baumbach, or this guy. There are two primary aspects of how he adapted it poorly to the small screen: dialogue and plot. Both are salient aspects when considering how to transition a book into a movie, and both are seriously flawed in White Noise. Dialogue in a film needs to be consistent. This consistency can be applied in several different ways, either on a global level to all characters, or on a localized level to one specific character. If a certain aesthetic is applied to dialogue in a global way, to the setting of a movie, you get something like a Wes Anderson film.
Are you Monsieur Gustave of the Grand Budapest Hotel in Naples-Bad?
Walt Boggess is a chicken farmer, probably the most successful in the world. He weighs the same as a young rhinoceros. He eats 3 chickens every day for breakfast, lunch, supper, and dessert. That's 12 in total per diem.
It's okay, I'll tell you. I'm adopted. Did you know that? Well, I am. When I was 14, I went to find my real family. They live in Indiana.
In his films, the characters speak in a certain cadence or rhythm in a non-diegetic way. That is, it's not like some have an accent that others notice. There are rules for speaking in the world of his movies that is just status quo. Another method is to instead apply that aesthetic to one specific character, like Yoda.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
This can make that character unique and stand out among the cast, especially if they have critical dialogue. The important thing here is consistency. It's alright to make everyone in your world talk like they're half robot if that's how everyone talks all the time. It's alright to make one character in your story talk in a strange or otherwise different way if they persist with that way of speaking for the entire movie. But in White Noise, we don't get either of these options. Instead, we get a strange mishmash, an unholy Frankenstein of stilted language mixed with regular witty dialogue. Let's take a look.
You know I need reminding, Jack.
They'll be back next year.
I hope so.
I realized it was 1968 I started the Hitler Studies program.
The supermarket is a waiting place. It recharges us spiritually. It's a gateway.
You're a man, Jack. We all know about men and their insane, jealous rage. This is something men are very good at.
I'm not good at that.
They have gleaming new equipment. It gleams. Absolutely.
Now, how, might you ask, did this happen? Why would a writer do this? Well, the answer is actually a lot simpler than one might think. Our silly screenwriter friend Baumbach over here decided that instead of reformatting lines of dialogue from the book that he was drawing inspiration from, like a regular screenwriter, he would make Control-C and Control-V his best friends in the whole wide world. Don't believe me?
Turn to page 394.
Went to libraries and bookstores, watched cable TV, made lists and diagrams.
What problem?
Memory lapse.
You would call a doctor at home to talk about memory lapse? If everyone with memory lapse called a doctor at home, what will we have? The ripple effect would be tremendous.
They are frequent.
Talked to a holy Sikh man in Iron City, even studied the occult, hiding the books in the attic so you and Denise wouldn't find them and wonder what was going on.
Absence.
Frequent and prolonged.
You would call a doctor at 10 o'clock at night. You would say to him, memory lapse? Why not tell me she has gas? Call me at home for gas.
California deserves whatever it gets. Californians invented the concept of lifestyle. This alone warrants their doom.
Frequent and prolonged, doctor. It has to be the medication.
What medication?
Dylor.
Never heard of it.
A small white tablet.
Comes in an amber bottle.
All this without my knowing. The whole point of Babette is that she speaks to me. She reveals and confides.
Who would describe a tablet as small and white and expect a doctor to respond at home after 10 at night? Why not tell me it is round? This is crucial to our case.
But what's the big deal, you might say? If it works, why not just take lines directly out of the book? I'm not saying dialogue can't be pulled out of a novel that a movie's being adapted from, but it has to fit a general consistent tone that the movie has built, which White Noise does not have. This movie gives me tonal whiplash.
Why do you suppose I just hurled a chair at your head?
Baumbach?
I don't know.
Sure you do.
Because of this strange fascination with taking exact lines from the book, which happens to be very awkward and clunky when spoken aloud in an audio-visual format, many dramatic moments and scenes feel off and distracting.
You thought Hitler would protect you. Some people are larger than life. Hitler is larger than death. I understand completely.
Do you?
But then, a moment later, characters will be talking to one another in a much more natural and witty manner.
Heinrich seems to be coming out of his shell.
Where is he? I haven't seen him.
You see that knot of people? Go see him. He's right in the middle. He's telling them what he knows about the toxic event.
What does he know?
Quite a lot, it turns out.
So you do know the difference!
This constant switching forces the audience into a state of confusion, which derails the suspension of disbelief that's so important to a narrative. Some dialogue is even adapted directly from monologues that the main character in the book has in his head. And a lot of it is written from the third-person perspective, which just sounds really off.
How is Babette?
I don't like the latest rumor.
Tell me.
They're lowering in technicians from army helicopters to plant microorganisms in the core of the toxic cloud.
What don't you like about it?
I don't know, it's like the greater the scientific advance, the more scared I get.
Interestingly enough, Baumbach was actually a co-writer with Wes Anderson on The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Maybe this explains his penchant for stilted esoterica in the dialogue of this film, but instead of going full Anderson, he goes half Anderson. And there's a reason people don't go half Anderson. A movie's dialogue tone needs to be consistent. A scene where these two dialogue tones clash the most is the argument scene where Babette tells Jack that she's been cheating on him.
No, you have to tell me who he is.
No. How do I know you won't kill him?
Because I'm not a killer.
It has similar energy to Marriage Story, which Baumbach also wrote and directed, while having the dialogue style of a Wes Anderson flick, because of the closeness of the transposition of the lines from page to screen.
I have to know, what's the condition?
I'm afraid to die. I'm afraid of my death.
You?
That's a lot like mixing Coca-Cola with guacamole and putting it on a sandwich. Let's compare the two.
I may be like my father, but I am not like my mother.
You are! And you're like my father. You're also like my mother. You're all the bad things about all of these people. But mostly your mother.
How do you offer your body to a composite of 3 or more people? This is a compound person. Let's concentrate on the genitals.
People used to tell me that you were too selfish to be a great artist, and I used to defend you. They were absolutely right.
All your best acting is behind you. You're back to being a hack.
But everyone fears death.
But Mr. Gray said I was extra sensitive to it, that I fear it right up front. That's why he was eager to use me.
Baba, I'm the one in this family who's obsessed by death.
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead. Dead like if I can guarantee Henry would be okay. I'd hope you get an illness and then get hit by a car and die.
The odd tone of dialogue in White Noise creates a barrier to the audience fully investing themselves in the conflict of Jack finding out that Babette has been cheating on him. Real emotion is clouded in an opaque fog of labored lines. Okay, so the dialogue is strange. But what else comes directly from the book that Baumbach adapted a little too literally? The second point here concerns the pacing of the plot. See, the book takes place over the course of an entire year. The seasons change and a lot happens. This includes the toxic event, which occurs somewhere in the middle of the novel. The toxic event begins with a train and a truck that go boom, and then this giant purple cloud of death looms over this quiet little suburban town. Jack and his family pile into the car and go on a wacky road trip of doom for a few minutes. But then all of a sudden the toxic event is over, and the family goes back to their normal, everyday lives. What this does is that it completely throws off the pacing for the film. See, having the toxic event in this place in the narrative all of a sudden heightens everything. The family starts on this adventure and the pitch of the drama is ramped up to 10. Their lives are turned upside down and they have to fend for themselves in the midst of a public panic. But this portion of the movie ends very suddenly as the family returns back to their everyday life with approximately 1 hour of screen time remaining. This would be like if the Goonies defeated the bad guys and escaped out of the cave place, and then the last 40 minutes was them just going to school and doing their homework. Because I simp for the Lord of the Rings on an ongoing basis, let's use the Fellowship of the Ring as an example of when filmmakers chose to change the content of the book in order to create a good pacing for the movie. In that adaptation, you'll notice that as the book is adapted into a movie, that there was a character who did not make his way into the first entry of Jackson's trilogy. A certain mystical being with the power of super singing, Tom Bombadil, otherwise known as Tommy Bombadillo down in Texas, is a strange personage that the hobbits run into on their way to the prancing pony who saves them from Old Man Willow and the Barrow-wights. Now, die-hard fans of the book probably said, Tom Bombadil is so cool, why did they take him out of the movie? Or, Peter Jackson really doesn't have any reverence for the source material, does he? But there's a very good reason why the Hobbit's adventures with Bombadil are cut out from the version that played in theaters. See, Tom Bombadil is a very merry fellow who saves the Hobbits on 2 separate occasions. He doesn't show up again in the War of the Ring because he actually doesn't care about the goings-on of Middle-earth. So first, he doesn't have anything to do with the later plot events, and second, and most importantly, adding him into the film would have ruined the pacing in the first half of Fellowship. See, after Gandalf departs, the hobbits are left to fend for themselves, which raises the level of suspense because of their inability to properly defend themselves, especially from ringwraiths. Even when they meet up with Aragorn, he is presented as a shadowy figure. Even though he keeps the hobbits out of the grasp of the ringwraiths and Bree, there is still an air of mystery to him which lends to the atmosphere and tension that the narrative is meticulously building. Adding Tom Bombadil, a wacky, colorful figure who is able to defeat virtually every enemy in existence by singing at them, would have dispelled any tension built up to that point. And it would have made the Hobbits' adventures on their way to Rivendell feel more episodic, muddling the narrative clip. I bring this example up because Peter Jackson and company were wise to remove Tom Bombadil out from the movie's script. Doing so allowed them to streamline the pacing of the Hobbit's journey to Rivendell in an excellent, riveting fashion. There is an art to knowing what to include and what to cut when laying out sequences in a film to create a specific tempo to the story beats. The screenwriter of White Noise chose that instead of adapting the plot, to some kind of 3-act structure in which the action ramps up throughout the runtime, that the exciting toxic event sequence would happen in the middle of the movie. He chose to stay married to the book's layout instead of adapting the story across mediums in a way that would keep the audience engaged. The issue here is that halfway into the movie, the action suddenly drops off. The family goes back to the normal way of life, and things get slow. Instead of pushing the toxic event sequence towards the end of the movie in order to have that feel like the exciting climax, or crafting the later events to carry out a similar energy, it follows the book much too closely. The toxic event begins at the 30-minute mark, which is often the narrative beat in which the main characters enter into a new world, dramatically speaking, which is then the focus of the film's plot up until the end of the movie. But the toxic event ends 30 minutes after it begins, leaving the second half of the movie with a confused energy.
What's the matter, Bob? I'm confused.
The third and final act, where things are supposed to be reaching an exciting climactic conclusion, instead fizzles with a whimper. And what is more, the promotional material for White Noise focused on the toxic event. The entire trailer is framed around it, making the film appear to be a quirky road trip movie, more like a road trick movie, instead of what it actually is, which according to IMDb is a comedy drama horror, whatever that is. The road trip part of the movie is another genre entirely. And because it takes up an awkward fourth of the movie's runtime, it becomes a narrative tumor that kills any semblance of a good pace. Because Noah Baumbach decided that his loyalty was to the book and not his audience, the resulting film adaptation that he produced is, unfortunately, too uneven in plot structure and dialogue to have any kind of memorable gravitas. In the end, this film was so strange and disjointed that it doesn't even live up to its name. Putting on White Noise in the background would be a much more coherent experience than having to sit through this perplexity of a movie again.